Welcome to my first vegetable garden. Today's video is all about growing basil. I'm going to show you how to start it indoors. It's really easy to grow, so expensive to buy in stores. If you just kind of follow this basic setup, you'll be able to save a lot of money and really have endless basil throughout the summer. So February 12th, way too cold to get it outdoors, but I want to show you how to get it started. I'm going to show you a couple growth examples at 4 weeks and 8 weeks and just teach you everything you need to know to grow your own basil. Basil's really expensive to buy as transplants. It's going to cost you anywhere from $4 to $6 a plant. A lot of times when we buy them at the big box stores, the basil is overgrown, meaning it's starting to get flowers kind of past its prime. You want to get a plant in when it's relatively young so it can establish roots, get beautiful upper growth, and I'll talk about that as we go along. So today is February 12th. Let's start with basil that I put in on January 2nd. These are in larger containers. I've overseeded it. There's a lot of plants in there, but I'm going to be dividing this up. That may be a subject of a future video. You only want to put in, maybe 2 seeds per cell if you're going to grow it indoors, something like that. However, I always like to put in extra seeds just in case 1 or 2 don't germinate. I have other seeds to come up. So you can always thin this down. You can remove some of the leaves. So don't feel like it has to be 1 seed per. Just once they germinate, you're going to thin them down to 1 or 2 plants. So these have been growing since January 2nd. Put in, the seeds on January 2nd. Today's the 12th, 4 weeks. This is the growth. So right here, you see the true leaves. Leaf right there, that's a true leaf. The leaf there, and on the other side, those are the leaves that break the surface. And that's, when a seed germinates, it sends up 2 leaves usually, collects energy, and then it starts growing, it's true leaves. When you have 2 or 3 sets of true leaves, that's typically when your basil is ready to be transplanted out into the garden. So at 4 weeks old, this is, doing really well. Somewhere between 6 and 8 weeks, this would go out into the garden. Why is that important? That's how you figure out when to start your basil indoors. You figure out when the night temperatures in your area are going to stay around 50 degrees Fahrenheit, 10 degrees Celsius. The soil temperature during the day is warming up to 65 degrees Fahrenheit, about 18.2 degrees Celsius, and the days are getting into the 60s and 70s. Basil likes the warmth, has to be in warm soil, and it doesn't like cold nights. So you don't want the night temperatures to get really below 50 degrees Fahrenheit, 10 degrees Celsius. So you find that average date in your area, let's just say it's May 1st, and then you count back 4 weeks. That will take you to April 1st, and then another 2 weeks will take you to the middle of March. Count back another 2 weeks, beginning of March, that'll be 6 to 8 weeks. In that time frame, your basil is going to have 2 or 3 sets of true leaves. Basil is going to be in good shape, and you can transplant it out into the garden. One thing to keep in mind is that when you're growing any plant, any vegetable, herb, flower indoors, it's not used to the UV rays of the sun. So you want to acclimate this slowly over a week, a little bit each day, letting the sun hit it, letting it get used to the UV rays. Because if you go right from under your grow lights, right out into the ground, it's a sunny day, it's going to kill your basil off. It's actually going to burn the leaves. Here's a couple examples of basil that was planted on 12/2, and I'm going to show you how to plant it in some starting mix and all that. So on December 2nd, and that's going to be, to February 12th, what is that? About, let's see, quick math, about 10 weeks. This is kind of overgrown. When you're getting past that 7th, 8th week, going into the 9th week indoors, your basil is going to put out flower stalks. And you don't want that. We grow basil for the leaves. So whenever you see the flowers, and you could grow this indoors to harvest it during, the winter if you want. But when you start seeing flowers outdoors, you want to get in and just pinch the flowers off. Same thing indoors. Pinch the flowers off. And that's just going to keep the energy being pushed back in. Let me see if I can find a good example. Being pushed back down into the joints where the leaves meet the stem. New leaves are going to come out. All of these were already topped off about, 10 days ago. And you can see that I just take the top flower off and the new growth starts right on the sides. Same thing right here. The original flower was coming up here. I removed that, sent out the side shoots, flowered again, removing that, and you just keep removing the flowers and you get these beautiful leaves. Now, these are kind of overgrown to really go out into the garden. They want to flower, and that's one of the things you're trying to do when you're growing basil, and you want to grow it endlessly over the summer. You're always putting in new plants in some way, and that might be every 4 weeks, every 6 weeks, so that you just keep the leaves going. As it gets warmer and hotter, and you're getting into the middle of summer, a lot of times the basil wants to really put out flowers. So it's a little bit of a battle of keeping the flowers down and keeping, the tasty leafy greens going. Another cool thing you can do with basil, maybe you're growing indoors and definitely basil outdoors, is you just find a plant that maybe is getting, a little bit overgrown, and you're just looking to give it a trim. I'm going to cut this pretty harshly, right down. Let's see if I can do this one-handed. Right down there. And I'm just going to leave this little stump right in there, so to speak. You want to leave at least a couple leaves on there. That will continue to grow and it's going to come back. But what you can do is strip off the bottom leaves, and then you take your basil cutting and you can just drop it in water, and you can put in a bunch of these. In about, 7-10 days, you're going to see roots. Somewhere around 14, 21 days, there's going to be a lot of roots on there. This will continue to grow, and then you can just plant this out into the garden. So you can propagate your basil by taking cuttings, putting it into water. Just put it on a sunny windowsill. You don't necessarily need grow lights during the summer. Keep it by the windowsill, let it grow roots. When the roots are big enough, you can go ahead and plant it out into the garden. If you want, you can pot them up into something like this, let them establish a little more. When you're growing basil indoors, you do need grow lights. I have plenty of videos on that if you want to check out the video description below. I'll put some links in there that will help you out with growing plants indoors. So again, the guys here were planted on December 2nd. I've been harvesting, I've been cutting them back, I've been removing flowers, and it's beautiful basil. If you go into a store to buy this, the plants, if you're lucky, are $4 a plant. A lot of times they're overgrown, meaning they've been sitting there for way too long. They're flowering, they're underfed, they're just not healthy plants. They're stressed because they're not being watered regularly. You can grow your own basil. It only costs about $2 a pack. And if you go to my seed and garden shop, it's only $1.50 a pack actually. Basil comes in all kinds of different varieties. This is your standard sweet basil. You can get lemon basil, lime basil, cinnamon basil. Here's some purple basil with flowers that are starting because they were planted on 12/2 again, and I would just pinch these flowers off. There's probably easily 30 varieties of basil in all different colors and flavors, and it's a lot of fun to grow. Just look online, see what you can find. The basil pack, costs you $1.50 a pack. There's tons of seeds in there. For the cost of a container, and you can make these out of yogurt containers, whatever you want to use, some starting mix, you're growing plants really for pennies a plant, and you're never going to be able to use all the basil seeds in here. The other thing that I just want to stress too is as you're growing your transplants indoors, and these are going to be the first ones that are going to go out on May 1st. So they get into the ground, they're established. On that same day, drop a few seeds somewhere close to the basil. This way, as this matures, gets bigger, maybe gets beat up, you've got the new basil coming in, and that's succession planting. So to keep that endless basil going for the entire summer, every, maybe not 4 weeks, but every 6 weeks, 8 weeks, you want new basil plants to be going down, or you want seeds to be going down. You can be taking cuttings, you can be rooting, but you just keep the basil going for the entire summer. The other trick is basil likes warmth, but come like late June, July, when the sun is beating down on the plants, they just get beat up. So you can put them in a place that gets a little bit of shade during the harsh afternoons, and basil's going to do fine. It wants at least a good 6 hours of sun. Doesn't really want to be baked in the sun for like 10 hours. So you can get this into some shady areas, but it does at least need 6 hours of sunlight in some capacity. All right, let's set these up for planting. Now, I sell all these at my seed shop. These are larger cells. That just means I'm not going to have to pot up. And you can see that the plants are doing pretty well in there. Standard small cells, medium cells, those are the three types that I sell. In the medium cell, I'm just going to press this down about 1/4 of an inch. And I can't remember if that's like 0.75 centimeters, not really far. You can get an idea just by the depth, just like the depth of the eraser. I like to do 2 holes in the medium containers. I'm going to drop 1 seed, maybe 2 seed per hole. I don't like waiting around for a seed to germinate that's not going to germinate. I would rather thin things down. In the smaller cells, perfectly fine. They'll grow well in here for 6 weeks. I'm just going to put the little depression right in the center. All right, let me get the seeds ready. Basil seeds are really small. I put 1 to 2 seeds per hole, and then, you just go ahead and cover them over. Nothing fancy. Press them down, press down the starting mix. You want a nice, firm, growing base for the plants. And again, check out the video description for more videos on how to grow plants indoors. And please subscribe. I'll be doing I think I'm going to get 100 videos this year geared to new gardeners. And part of those videos are going to be growing herbs. So I'll be doing cilantro, dill, all kinds of different herbs, starting like you see here, direct sowing out in the garden. So please subscribe. I'll teach you how to grow food, have some fun. So these are set up. They're going to be dropped into a flat, bottom watered. The water will absorb up through the bottom. I'll just keep an eye on things. In about 7 to 10 days, they're going to germinate. In about 4 weeks, they're going to look like that. They're going to have their first true leaves. If you let them continue to grow, somewhere in about the 10th week, they're going to look like this. They're going to start flowering. You need to remove the flowers. You can take a cutting from your bigger plants, drop it in water. They're going to root out in about 7 to 10 days, and in a couple of weeks, they'll be ready to go out into the garden. It's really this easy to grow basil. Again, the seed pack was only $2 because I didn't buy it from my seed shop for $1.50. Starting mix, maybe $8 for a bag, something like that. Containers you can make, you can repurpose. And, all this basil, if I went and bought it per plant, say be 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, say there's going to be 3 good plants in there, another 12, almost $40 if you include that. You can do it for a couple of bucks, pennies per plant. You're good to go. Thanks so much for watching. Please check out my seed shop at therustedgarden.com. And again, please subscribe. Teach you how to grow food, have some fun, and how to save money. Thanks for watching.